Okay, welcome everyone. Very, very excited about today. Really glad you're joining us. Thank you for your time. We hope we provide good value for it. We're going to wait a few minutes to get kicked off. My name is James Worth, and also on the screen is Citation Labs founder Garrett French. Hello,
Hey guys,
Garrett. Welcome.
thanks James. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, me too.
We've got a heck of a webinar we've been working on here. Excited to get into some of the ideas and some of the methods and our approach, because it's something that's really different, and I think it's worth talking about.
Very cool. Me too. I concur. So a couple more minutes, maybe 3 more minutes, and we'll get started. But quick couple of shout outs to early people who have said hello in the chat. Nuclear Pottery, hello from Minnesota. That's pretty exciting.
Hey
Olaf,
guys.
welcome. Doc Sheldon, really excited you guys are here with
Oh,
us.
Doc, what's up, man? I haven't seen this. I haven't talked to Doc in a long time.
Very cool. Robin, hey, thank you for joining today. Very excited. That's good stuff.
I owe Doc a contact finding solution. We never built one, Doc. We only kept doing it by hand. But anyways, well, you can hold my feet to the fire after the webinar.
We do have some tool releases planned in our marketing roadmap, so maybe that's one that we consider. I'd love to unpack that. Pretty exciting. Mandeep, hello. Craig, welcome. Anastasios, really excited for you guys and gals, everyone. Really excited for everyone to be joining.
Yeah, we're going to be giving some books away today too.
Yes.
We want some good questions from you guys.
There is an audience participation element to selecting those free books. It's this book right here, The Ultimate Guide to Link Building Second Edition. It's great stuff. This is my favorite go-to reference for all things link building related. So get your copy today by participating, ask good questions, and we're excited to make sure you get the answers.
Well,
we also have a few.
Oh, go ahead, James.
I was just going to say we also have a few people who have pre-selected their sites for us to consider. We're going to do some live review, and that's going to be I'm really excited about that too. Garrett is awesome at just riffing on right off the top of his head. We should get you into one of those. What do you call those classes? It's like comedy, the impromptu sort
improv.
of improv. Yes,
yeah.
It's basically a little night at the improv here with Garrett at the end. So really excited for that as well. We've got a few topics to cover. And we don't have a hard stop after this, so if there are some other sites to be considered, or we have more questions coming in, please stick around. We're happy to
load us up. Yeah, and if we get enough, we don't get to your question, well, then you just have to write to Anton and let him know that we should come back. All right. We'll try to get to everybody's, but we'd also love to come back. So just make sure you ask.
Absolutely. And
even
no,
if we
Doc,
answer your questions, still ask them.
And Doc, no, trolling Garrett does not count as participation.
He's already started.
Speaking of
it's too late. He's already trolling.
Yeah. It's on.
It is on already. Yep. He's set his phasers on troll. No, it's great. It's great.
Yes.
The book though wrote with the late great Eric Ward. Missed the heck out of him. Was a great guy and actually did some kind of live link building brainstorming sessions with Eric, and that's on YouTube, guys. It's from 2015. It's 6 years ago, but it is super fun stuff. And if you get a chance, go back and check it out. Yeah. He was absolutely just bottle lightning. He just could come up with ideas like that. Was an amazing guy to work with.
All right, very good. And on that note, let's kick it off. So my name is James Worth. I'm joined by Citation Labs founder Garrett French. We're very excited about the topic today, which is building links to sales pages. Special thanks to SEMrush for hosting us, and our fab moderator, Kate, for moderating for us today. Yes, Kate. Yay to Kate. Okay, so we are going to just dive right in. In case you are unfamiliar with us, this is a little bit about Citation Labs, established in 2009. Actually, need to update that. It's more like, I think, 175 now employees. And the book I mentioned, The Ultimate Guide to Link Building, co-written by Eric Ward and Garrett French, now in its second edition. A couple of places that Garrett's been published: Moz, SEO Book, SEM Land, Mashable, WIP, and a number of webinars that have been hosted by SEMrush. So,
Thanks,
or
guys.
SEMrush, depending on how you like to pronounce it. It seems like it's a North America versus Europe sort of differentiator there. And then a number of past clients which you probably have heard of. So we're very excited about the topics today. And Garrett, let's kick it off by jumping right into how link building, the objective of it, informs the tactic that we access.
Thank you, James. Yes, this is, I think, very important, especially for this particular webinar. If you're joining us, you've been reading about link building for the past few years, maybe 5 years or so. There's really been a major emphasis and focus on building your overall domain authority score. And this is great stuff, and you should continue to do that. But then we enter this, place as SEOs where we say, well, what about my sales pages? I need those to rank higher too. So we think about it, increasing your authority score, your domain's authority score is akin to, trying to boil the ocean, whereas, really focusing on an individual page that you want to have ranking higher is like boiling a little small pot of water. It's much easier to get more measurable results more quickly. And so that's the whole basis for really, the last 5-6 years of our work has been, how do we build links directly to sales pages? So as we've developed out our approach, we've really come to think about the publishing web differently. And we've got, are we seeing slides right? James, can you throw up that
Nope, you're going
publisher?
great.
Yep. Okay. The publisher pyramid. Sorry, I'm just seeing myself on the screen. The publisher pyramid slide is showing to my audience. There we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
So this is how we view the internet. Now, we used to draw this pyramid the other way because we started at the top also. And the top is where, you have digital PR folks working, this is mainstream media, ad-supported media. This 4% here, this next chunk, now it's not, drawn to scale here, so don't say anything, Doc. But the 4% there, it's really more like the .gov, .org, more of the public good type organizations. They're donation supported, et cetera. And what's been by and large ignored over the last 20 years, not 20, maybe, is the rest of the internet. And these are people who are publishing to get sales. They publish to drive leads. They publish to build awareness of their products and services. And so this part of the publisher pyramid also enables you to be a lot more precise about where you're linking. You don't necessarily have to pitch into and think about their editorial board. You don't necessarily have to build links to an amazing resource guide that doesn't have a whole lot to do with your core offering as a business. So you're able to lean more into sales related topics because that's what they're doing on their blogs as they're selling. So this is how we've come to think about the internet, and as we've sort of shaped our thinking, that's really affected our process and our approach. And so now, James, it's coming back at you, buddy. This is the page selection methodology, and this is really where we start when we have a prospect come in the door or a client that says, "Hey, we want to change. We're ready to change things up. We want to try. All our pages are ranking great. We want to get some new pages, and all the data." James, am I right in saying that the data? There's a lot here, but you can look at it on your own outside of this. Is it going to be downloadable?
We are. I was going to mention that later. We are working on cleaning this up a little bit. It's still a lot of formula adjusting each time I run one of these. So once we get it cleaned up, if you want to head over to citationlabs.com and sign up for our newsletter, we will be announcing that this will be available through the newsletter. So that would be a great way if you'd like to receive a copy of this. You don't have to decide now. We'll show you what it is first, and then you could decide if it's something that you would think would be of value to you. And so, yes, thank you, Gareth. We're going to talk about, yeah, go ahead.
It's a lot of information is what I'm saying.
It's a lot of information.
But it's also why we hired James. Wait till you see this stuff. It's awesome.
It's good stuff. So I know it's a wall of data. I apologize for that. It's definitely something that we'll talk through, and we do this with a client or a prospective client. We talk through this data set, and essentially it's a way for us to look at the client's pages compared to a competitive data set that focuses on link related metrics. And so what we're seeing here is essentially, so what I do is I start with SEMrush and I use the organic research tab. I grab all the pages, download those, and then I pick a top number of pages. This is a relatively small number of pages compared to what I sometimes do. Usually it's 100 or so. So we really have a good idea for which pages we're potentially working on, any internal priorities, and then we start looking at the competitive metrics. So this is effectively a link gap analysis between our site and the top 10 competitors for the top 10 keywords of each of these pages. So we end up with a data set of about 110 rows per page. So it's really kind of a starting point, but it does give us a starting point. And so what I'm looking for here is primarily I'm looking at LRDs, linking root domains, for this page compared to those top 10 competitors for each of the top 10 keywords for that page. So it's not necessarily the pages that are driving the most traffic now, it's really where is the opportunity for those pages. And then there's a keywords tab here. So if I want to, I can go filter out some pages like maybe Loft or W doesn't make sense for me. I can go filter those out if I want to get a closer comparison, more relevant comparison with linking root domains. And so, so here's where we are is looking at this link gap. This is really what we're trying to boil this down to is, do we have an opportunity from a link perspective, a link building perspective, to improve our rank and visibility for this particular page by building links? So looking at it from this perspective is kind of the first step, figuring out where the priorities are and that sort of thing. And then there are also some other metrics that can be really helpful here too, in terms of difficulty score, for example. This is from SEMrush directly. It's their difficulty score, so I get a sense for how difficult on average the top 10 the keywords for this page are, how difficult they are to rank for. That's good from an organic search perspective. That's interesting. Also looking at the page's authority score compared to the average page authority score from those 10 competitors. These are also pieces that I can use in determining these recommendations. And then from here, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, I apologize for that, but we get a little bit lost in terms of not seeing enough data here. And now I can start looking at, okay, what would a potential engagement look like from this perspective? And so now that I have my pages, and we're going to focus on sofas today for some of the canned analysis here, the stuff that we've prepared for a little bit more than the live reviews that we'll do later, we're picking sofa. So I'm looking for sofa related pages here that I can include in a potential campaign. And then how we do it usually is we give the prospective client a few scenarios. Do the same thing if I were an in-house SEO and I'm building links directly myself, looking at a few scenarios about how we want to focus our efforts, whether it's investment of time or investment of money. And so then I can look and get a little bit more granular here. Let's say we're going with this particular scenario. And then another thing that we can do is we can talk a little bit about forecasting return on investment. And this could be your time if you're in-house, or if you're an agency like we are. You can also, and this is a very rudimentary model here, guys, so please don't pick this apart too much, except for Doc, you're welcome to. But calling me out on this is totally fine. But just, it's in the SEO community, we are averse to talking about ROI, and that puts us in a tough spot when we're up against paid search ROAS models and CMOs who we really need to assign some sort of value to investments. And I think it's okay. It's a forecast. We're going to make some massive assumptions here when we're talking about these things like the average order value and conversion rate. But if I'm on a call or in a meeting with someone who knows their average order value or conversion rate, I can enter that right there, and that's going to make this more personalized. And also in our impact reporting, we've noticed too that, and we all talk about this, SEO is the long game. So we're looking at the value of this investment well beyond when the investment stops. And so here is the ROI at the end of the term versus 6 months after that versus another 6 months, or a total of 12 months after the end of the term here. And in my scenarios, there were a couple of examples: 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So we can divide it up that way. So we can also talk about ROI. So we're not going to go into a lot of this. It's just a way for us to frame up the conversation around where are we going to spend our time and or money from an SEO link building perspective. And so today, Garrett, we're going to talk about sofas. And so Kate, if you could get us over to Garrett full screen, he's going to now go to town on this Beautiful Mind whiteboard behind him here.
Sofas? I thought it was supposed to be pillows.
Pillows?
Just kidding. I did sofas.
Let's talk about toilet plungers today.
Oh no. Okay, folks. This is this is what we call linking context development. This is where we take something that's for sale on your website and we expand from there and really ask, how are we going to be building links to this? So why do we do linking context development? Well, we want to generate, in some cases, page level ideas. Now, it's not often, but we do love it, but it's not often that we have folks tell us, yes, please, let's add some content to our sales pages. They're usually pretty protective about sales pages in particular. And you know, the link builders come knocking on your door asking if we can make changes to our sales pages. We get asked to leave the kitchen more than once, but we still ask. We're also looking for pitchable topics and concepts. So this all comes from a single URL. This is the basis of our operations. It's the basis of how we think about and build out campaigns. It helps us think through prospecting directions. What kind of sites should we be looking for? Who should we be approaching here? And lastly, it helps us generate built link opportunities where the links are relevant to the page. They're contextual. So a lot of times this is context that we're sort of solving for. And then sort of, we like to think we help train the algorithm around what context really looks like. There absolutely need to be useful links that we're building. Necessary even, I love a good necessary link that just has to be there. And then of course, links that are going to feel natural and really actually be natural. Okay. Whew. Okay, so I know everybody in YouTube, look, we're going to send you all pictures of this thing because it gets small, I know, and I apologize in advance. Kate told me I could go even smaller than this. Just kidding. She warned me.
She said the opposite.
She said the opposite, actually. But we have pictures or screenshots that we'll be sharing if you want to, go back through this part. And if you don't, it's about 15 minutes so you can go get some coffee or something. So when we start linking context development, and again, this is the piece that's really at the core of our approach. We have two main research methods, okay? So we got tools that we use, and then we go into guided brainstorming. I'm just gonna jump in here. So James handed off our SOFA's URL. Okay, this is cool. What are we gonna do now? Well, first things first, we're gonna look at some backlink analysis. Who's linking to the top ranking SOFA's pages right now? If I search for, SOFA's for sale online, who's up there? What kinds of links are they getting? And we get all this, we pull all this data from SEMrush too, by the way. I don't know if you've heard of them or not. They're a really neat new company. Just kidding.
We just discovered them.
We just found them the other day. They're great. Then we got, these are kind of the research areas. We're looking at the existing links to your top ranking pages. And then we've got research items. This is what we're really pulling out. What do we really want to explore and understand from this data? We're looking primarily here at the titles and the topics of these linking pages. We're looking for what stands out, what is common here, what's going on a lot. Not necessarily to replicate, but just to have some jumping off points. So we're looking for things like, who are the audiences here? What are their concerns? What are they concerned about? What kinds of problems is this content solving? We're looking at the context of the link itself within the paragraph, within the entire document. Is it even in a paragraph? Is it, like a coupons page link or something like that? So what we saw a lot of in the existing links to SOFA's pages were event-specific deals and home decor trends. Okay, so what this whole process ultimately helps us generate are publishers and topics for prospecting. So this is our prospecting list now. So at the very top here, this follows through from the event-specific deals. So we'd be prospecting for publishers who've written about Labor Day deals, President's Day deals, Black Friday deals. Nobody wrote about Super Bowl deals. There really aren't those things, but sofas plus Super Bowl just kind of makes sense to me. And then certainly roundups and features that are talking about sales and deals. And so if you are, again, with this one, you'd have to be adding an element to the SOFA's URL page to talk about the deal itself or have some kind of citable element on that particular page. But this is, kind of how we walk through. And then, of course, home decor trends, just what kinds of styles are popular right now, or even not popular, because there's still going to be a publisher out there who's written about Victorian, styling, which it might be popular, it might not. I'm not picking on anybody. But that, then if you've got a sofa that happens to fit nicely in that particular style, then that's what your kind of content you're writing about. And you're able to, you have some kind of, again, citable element on this sofa about, on the sofa page rather, about making it blend or working it into your Victorian home styling patterns. Okay, let's go all the way back over here now. We're going to talk about keyword magic and then sort of general suggest scraping tools as well. So again, we're still in the tools method. And these are the ones we usually start with. They're kind of the easier places to start if you're just really scratching your head about how do we build links to this particular page. So keyword magic and suggest scraper, what we're trying to answer here are what kinds of tasks and objectives relate. What are people trying to solve as it relates or pertains to this particular item? Interestingly, this one came up several times, is getting rid of your old sofa. I love this one. We just moved and we got rid of some sofas and it was very expensive. I would have loved to have read some other ways to do it, who would take it. But with this, the context is getting rid of an old sofa. And so again, you're going back to the sofa page, maybe it's on the category page. You're talking through the normal ways or the abnormal ways people have of getting rid of sofas, just a little section down towards the bottom of the page. And there's several kinds of contexts or topical contexts within which this would fit. Certainly moving, moving topics if people have written about moving. And then if they're moving professionals, so the moving professional sites, moving companies would probably be open to content or a pitch that has some, a portion of that just discusses what to do with your old sofa. Downsizing as a topic would be a lovely direction as well. So you're still relevant to sofas and couches, not necessarily buying one, in this case getting rid of one, but it's still an important kind of area of inquiry by the public. And so there's information demand for it, to be sure. Whew, okay. This is okay, I'm almost there. So then, guys, the other place that's a fairly common place for us to start is with actual kind of page copy review. So we've gone through tools, backlink analysis, keyword magic. You can also, search keyword plus how-to or best, sofa for sofa plus how-to and see what kinds of suggestions come up. But in the guided brainstorm section, we do start to think about what is actually said on the page that we're building links to. And one of the main things there, we call them purchase decision. This is all my fancy lingo, purchase decisioning factors, which is really what are the benefits? How do I qualify myself or disqualify myself from being a good customer or a good person to purchase this particular sofa? We also look at things like specs, and then certainly this is kind of shared between this item cost of money, time, exertion, et cetera, is within the resource planning requirements kind of lens that we use as well for understanding what our sofa is about. But this is all kind of where we go next. So we're thinking about measurable benefits. And so we would then jump to comfort and ergonomics of the sofa itself. Maybe the main reason people buy sofas is to sit on them and ideally be comfortable, or we assume be comfortable. Well, what do we really know about buying sofas online? I know that I might not, no offense to anybody out there, but my concern would be, I'm a tall fella, well, 6'1", not that, but whatever. So it's tough to find sofas that really fit my body frame. But if you give me a rule of thumb or some kind of algorithm that tells me so I can align the sofa's dimensions with my body frame, now I can really more effectively select a comfortable sofa for myself. And so now we get into places or topics like back pain. We get into chiropractors potentially. We get into physical therapists who may be dealing with people who sat in the wrong position on their couches for too long. Another kind of element here that would, again, potentially spring from page copy is is this sofa actually going to fit through my door, or is it going to fit up the turns on the stairs as if I'm in my apartment, we're on the 3rd floor, for example. And so again, this is going to disqualify. And so with this, does it fit? We're into more into the moving topics type space, and then moving it. Am I strong enough to move this sofa? No, I'm not. I didn't want to anyways, but I'm not strong enough. So now we're getting into fitness potentially. Now, Garrett, can you really link to is fitness really, well, am I fit enough? How many push-ups should I be able to do to move house? Maybe it's a stretch, maybe not, but we don't strike anything from the board right now. We're just brainstorming.
That also could be some really unique angles that you could come up with. If you came up with your own matrix or score of some kind that would do something like that, how many push-ups do I need to be able to do to move a sofa? Or, how much can
How many people do we need? That's true. That's resource planning there. Yeah.
Should I be able to touch my toes if I expect to be able to move a sofa around my room, or all of these sorts of things? And another thing too, I just wanted to mention really quickly, Garrett, which the light bulb went on just now, and it didn't before when we were talking about this, but purchasing behaviors have changed so much because of the pandemic. I'm buying things so differently than I have before. I just recently did buy a new sofa. My old sofa is still sitting in my couch, so I'm going to be looking for some resources from you after this. But one of the reasons why I had it delivered, and that's why we were using IKEA beforehand, because I bought it from IKEA. I've got this great new IKEA couch. I couldn't get the boxes in my car though. I was going to just order online and then go pick up. But luckily, I thought about, am I going to be able to fit these? And sure enough, no chance could I. And I have an Outback. It's like, super Outback. It's got a big, hatch. And I thought I would be able to, but I would not have been able to get those boxes in my car. So our behaviors are changing very dramatically because of the pandemic. And I frankly am going to keep a lot of the things, even when it's safe to go back into stores more. And so, but from that perspective, I hope light bulbs are going on if you sell a product or service where there was more face time and there's less now, in this sort of ideation to really help what sort of content you could generate on your page, or ideas that you'll be using to approach publishers for.
You could also try to give away your sofas on webinars too. James might have one if anybody needs one. That might be we could add that to the tips for how to get rid of your sofa. Thank you, James. No, this is right. This is really, we're walking through this with sofas, but this framework here is designed for any product or offering, product or service it's for sale. It's harder to brainstorm for some than others. Sofas are pretty easy because we're largely familiar with them.
We've got some doozies for you at the end though, Garrett, so don't worry.
Whew, thank goodness. I don't want it to be too easy for me. Resource planning requirements. So this is a phase of or an area of brainstorming where you start to get into needing a little more experience. And some of these end up being, these are more of like the FAQs. These are more of the frequently unasked questions, which I wasn't allowed to put the acronym up. The ratings board said I couldn't. But frequently unasked questions are just the stuff you don't know to ask. And I think, how many people do I need to move this sofa? how much experience, how much ability with, how much knowledge about physics and angles do I really need to have? Are some of the kinds of areas that we don't think to think about. Day one setup, not as much of a big deal with sofas necessarily, but it is certainly if we were looking at ERP software or something like that. But James, we were running through the other day, and he came up with avoiding floor damage, and I love this one. As far as day one setup, do we have the right materials to protect our wooden floors? Which then we could definitely leap into, flooring related topics, or protecting your floors when you get new furniture. What the weight of the furniture versus the density or thickness of the pad that you put underneath it. Maybe, I don't know. Let's just walk with me here, guys. Another one, this one I think is really interesting, because I believe there's got to be a kind of a mathematical, factual basis here, just like with the ergonomics, some ratios, but the optimal distance from your TV based on the TV size. And so where's the best place for your sofa to actually be positioned within the room? And again, positioning within the room would come down to the dimensions of your room. So you need to take some measurements, and the dimensions of the sofa itself. Again, another thing that if you've been in a room that has too many sofas or too big of sofas, you kind of notice, you really do know. So there are, again, going to be these ratios that I think you could express on your sofa page that then would give you opportunity to, kind of open up new topics and directions to potentially pitch. Thinking about ongoing maintenance. Sorry, I skipped one. Decorating. So how do you decorate effectively on the sofa? I didn't know this until doing the research. There's things called throws, which are kind of like blankets, but they're really more like blankets just for your sofa to keep it warm, and for your cats to sleep on. But there's throws and little stands that go beside the sofa, and there's a certain great way to position a rug. There are rugs that can look too small if you have the wrong rugs. So there's all these sorts of dial-in elements related to a sofa that I think are just, not many people know to ask. Now, this is also where you're going to have, you're going to start hitting a wall when it comes to, hey, let's add all of this stuff to the sales page. You're not going to be able to do that, but we're just, this is for illustrative purposes. But this does become a really, useful way to kind of create these segues into other topics or connections to other topics. I like ongoing maintenance too. How often should you vacuum your sofa? If you have 3 boys like I do, and we eat on the sofa, sometimes it's pretty frequently. But we think about things like cleaning and repairs versus things and conditions such as kids, pets, particular kinds of stains, pen, removing very particular kinds of stains from your sofas, which might be different on a leather sofa than a cloth sofa. So again, all these other kind of elements to dig into. But we also open ourselves up to, when we talk about distance from the TV, maybe AV equipment professionals, people who really care deeply and passionately about your home movie viewing experience. Home decor, e-commerce companies potentially even would be useful to reach out to. Pets and parenting topics could make sense. Certainly cleaning topics, cleaning professionals. We are getting almost done here. I was supposed to get this in 15 minutes.
We've got a pretty big list here too, Garrett. Is this something that someone needs to unpack every single one of these before they can start building some links? Because this might feel a bit tiring.
If you don't understand all of these, you will fail. No, just kidding. No, James, you're right. It really is more of the, these are how do we start with a URL? What kinds of questions do we need to be asking about it, or URL or an offering or a service or whatever, and then how do we kind of break it out? One more type that I want to cover though, and then I can stop talking about this until we do the walkthroughs with people's websites and URLs. Benefit maximization techniques, and this one is one of the most overlooked, but kind of one of the most exciting, and it also opens us up to more the digital PR type plays, and then also op-ed kinds of potential placements as well. But this is where you really get an expert to come in and explain to us how to get the most out of what we spend our money on, either with data or expertise supported guidance or advice. This is where if we really studied ergonomics, we had several ergonomic professionals to give us guidance on the best kind of setup for video gaming, which is likely to be different than watching a movie. So if I'm going to play, Fortnite for 5 hours, or the new Minecraft update came out today, so my kids are going to be playing that not on their couch, but let's say they were on the couch. Well, they're going to want to have a more upright position, a more alert, focused position than if we're watching all the back-to-back Lord of the Rings trilogy. So video games versus movie marathons. What are the best ways to position yourselves on the couch so that you've got the most support? Now, video game, if we identify the best couches for video games, or the best couches plus the best setups for video games, now we have something that potentially we could go and pitch into more the mainstream media publishers. Certainly movie marathons could be the same. I wondered also about best setups on your couch if you were working on your couch. I don't know how many folks who work from home do spend time on actually working from their couches. I don't, but I can imagine that some people would. So what would be a great setup for that? Or what percentage of people do work from their couches? And maybe there's certain couches that are better. There's certain couches that have little plugs in them, built into them. I don't know. Best couches for medical recovery. And then what types of accessories, back pillows, and maybe stools do we need for maximum ergonomic fit? And which is ergonomic fit is there's a science to it, and I think it's something potentially worth pursuing or digging into. Or certainly if you're not selling sofas, some form of how do we bring a external study into the purview of our offering. And lastly, I would think about things like for ergonomics, we could be do we have an ergonomics guru we could either create or hire? Is there an ergonomics influencer, someone that we could bring in and be a spokesperson for nailing down how exactly ergonomics impacts the sofas that we sell. Same for decorating. Same kind of, ideally you're finding an influencer or someone who's a bit of a celebrity already or has potential for celebrity, and then they're going to be talking through really getting your mid-century modern sofa to fit in your room and exactly what kinds of colors blend really well, etc. So this is where this kind of benefit maximization is getting the most out from your the purchase you've just made. You guys, if you stuck through all of that, I'm really impressed. I'd love to hear someone, give a shout out for yourself. Pat yourself on the back.
Pat yourself on the back. That was good stuff. So we have this whole workflow or methodology here that we've worked through all the way up until but not including that final right-hand column. And as we were going along, we're jotting down these ideas about topics that we can cover or different types of publishers that we would potentially do outreach to. So as Garrett mentioned, you don't need necessarily do all of this for every single page, but it's a few hours very well spent to work through this methodology here on your workbench. Now, Garrett, where do we take this from here? Now that we have these topics identified and these publisher types identified, where do we essentially go from here?
Sure. The one that for some reason I got the most excited about was getting rid of old sofas. And so that would be moving topics, and moving professionals would be who we'd be searching for. So I'd love to jump into the last portion, and this is the area of link building that I've talked about a lot. I think others have talked about a lot too. And so it's really the linking context development around sales pages that I felt like we should really bear down on. But just briefly, kind of prospecting. If our topic is moving, we've got two different types or two different approaches for publisher discovery. One would be publishers who broadly have written about moving as a topic, just advice for moving with pets, or etc. And so you'd want to build out, you go back to, keyword magic or suggest scraper, and you're looking for what is the universe of questions that people are trying to solve, moving, how do I, these kinds of stems are what you put into your suggest scraper. You're just going to build up a whole, 100 of these or 50, and you're going to go search them in Google, or you can, find a scraper tool as well.
And SEMrush's keyword magic tool is great for this. So you can even toggle to just look at questions. So there's all kinds of ideation inside. You can look by category. It's a really, really fabulous tool, which we often use. So if you're using a lot of the data that we get is from SEMrush's backend through API calls. But if you're looking at the front end, and we'll look a little bit at that later, you can use the keyword magic tool as a great way to do some of this ideating.
Absolutely. And then you just take all these kind of topics that you've discovered, and then you're going to add the word. You can and should absolutely search them without any appendages, but then you could throw on blog or in URL blog as well, or in URL :blog, and then these are going to more likely bring back publishers who have blogs who might be open to writing a story or accepting an op-ed from you on a given topic. And
okay, so we have a little bit of time to make up here, Garrett. So I'm going to corral us along here through prospecting.
Did I go long on the?
A little bit. We're okay. We're okay. Let's just keep on moving.
All right. Okay. And then business publishers, what I do there is think about movers in particular locations. So we're going to try to find moving companies. So I might get a list of like the top 100 populated U.S. cities. And I'll say movers in these particular cities, and in that blog, and then that in URL blog, you look in the top 20 results there and find a nice big batch of potential publishers to engage with.
Yes. Okay. All right. On to qualifying.
Qualifying. We keep it simple here. And so this is a place where I think if you're doing like old school digital PR or links and resource page link building, you really are thinking about massive reach and massive domain authority scores. And what we're really focused on here is relevance to our topic, relevance to our page, and then absolutely, is this a real site? And so kind of our chief qualifying, metric, if you will, it's yes, no. Is there a clear revenue model? Can we tell how they make a living? And then do they openly solicit guest posts? And if they do, we steer clear, because
that's bad, by the way.
That's
That's bad.
It's going to be less likely that we want to really work with them. We do, we have folks who really do want us to focus on authority score of given linkers, and we can certainly try, but then that definitely impacts our capabilities around reaching our target root linking domain counts, which James specifies for us. So there's certainly a balance to be had between a metric quality of a site, but our first and foremost, is it a real site? And then, which to us is defined by, is it clear how they make a living? Do they sell services or products? Are they ad supported? And if it's neither of those, then they're probably not a real website. So
quick shout out. I don't know if everybody on the call is aware, but SEMrush has revamped their backlink analytics report, and it's amazing. One of my favorite things is, which is great for us as link builders, is they've taken that process, and I don't think it's fully. Kate can tell us. I don't know if it's fully live yet, but it's on the way, certainly. Where we're taking a process where backlink discovery for a particular page would often take maybe a few weeks. They're getting it down to potentially a few hours. So it's very exciting and helps us measure quantitatively the work that we're doing. Qualitatively, though, all these things that Garrett's calling out on here, there are some other things too in your review of these potential publishers you may want to look at, just in terms of number of outside contributors, the amount of comment spam. Of course, if you see something like that, that could indicate maybe this isn't as strong of a potential as you would thought. Sometimes they publish it to PDFs instead of pages. Do they follow or no follow the links? And then, of course, reviewing their backlink profile in backlink analytics.
The other piece I want to mention too, around metrics, is that, and we'll get into this further on, but is that what we really like to focus on is measuring impacts of the links that have been built, as opposed to really digging real deep into metrics onto the linking sites.
Yes,
but we'll get into that, and
slides.
James has a
2 slides.
James, yeah, exactly. James has a section on that. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about engagement. This is super high level. You know, all of this really, the prospecting, qualifying, and outreach have been high level. So, you know, we can dig into any of these in the future more, but these are certainly, I feel like they've been covered a lot. But from a real, what I really, if you don't take anything else home, you can just skip to this part of the video and just watch this one part. When you pitch, make sure you're pitching publisher benefits first and foremost. What does that mean? You got to think about what's in it for the publisher. And I think it's pretty rare, even in you know, I get pitched all the time on the Citation Labs site. If I want an article or a, you know, something from somebody so they can get a link, and very rarely, or really never, I've just never gotten a great one that I was really like, yes, you know exactly what I want. But putting those publisher benefits first, and again, what the publisher wants is going to align with this publisher pyramid model, as far as how we think about the publishing web, the whole internet, or the whole publishing internet. So the vast majority of the potential publishers out on the internet are going to be the lead supported websites, and so they want sales. These are publishers who want sales, so they want content that's going to help them sell more. So if you're coming up with topics or concepts that could help them sell and help you sell, that's really the place that you want to be focused. The public good portion of the internet, so we think of these the .orgs, the .edus, the .govs. You're pitching helpful fact sheets potentially. You know, maybe the seniors guide to moving, or how much can and should seniors lift if their heart rates are at certain. So this sofa is not senior safe for moving. If you have a senior safe kind of guidance you can provide, and then give individual, anyways. So then also, lastly, down at the bottom, we've got the ad supported. And so the publisher benefit for these folks would be page views, large volumes of page views, maybe some access to hard to reach experts, if there are any that happen to be hard to reach in the sofa related industries. I don't know who, maybe some famous designer if you can get a hold of them. But again, what you really have to ask yourself is what does this publisher want? And really, the even better person to ask would be the publisher. But you can kind of make a decent guess just by visiting their website and getting a sense of who are they, how do they function in their publishing world. So the public good side, you know, the orgs, EDUs, and govs, they publish to benefit the public. And so you're on that side, you're kind of leaning into being helpful, being useful to particular segments of the public. So that's engagement. And after you've successfully prospected, qualified, and engaged, you've gotten placements, you've gotten links, now it's time to start thinking about what happened. What did all of these links do? And this is where James comes in.
Yes, let's talk about this. There's going to be a bunch of data here. I'm going to go through it relatively quickly to make sure we have time for the reviews of attendees' websites. But you'll get the deck, and you'll get of course, the recording here. It'll be on YouTube. So if you need to go back and look at any of this, would love to get any sort of feedback that you have to us. What we've really tried to do is create the reporting suite that I have always felt is pretty light from an SEO perspective. As an SEO generalist, anytime an engagement included backlinks especially, but just generally for SEO as well. So we've developed our own reporting suite, but you could certainly do this with Data Studio or something like that as well. Whether you're going and manually downloading SEMrush data or you're setting up API calls, they've got that great connector to Data Studio as well. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. I just noticed there's a little bit of redundancy here with a couple of things, but hey, visibility is really important. So we've got share of voice / visibility here, of course, page authority score, cumulative activity for backlinks. We have a couple of ranking type metrics, average ranking, as well as keyword distribution, and then page level reports, so we can really kind of top and bottom box our performance and determine which pages warrant a closer look, essentially. And so our goal is to really pull actionable insights out of this for us as the agency, and making recommendations to the client as well as for the client when they're reporting up in terms of the work that they're doing and their management of us as the company vendor. So we look at a number of different reports. We'll just highlight a few of these things. So page authority score is a really big one, and we treat this a lot of times, especially early on in a campaign in the first few months, as a leading indicator, because often what we'll see prior to an improvement in average rank over across the keywords that we're tracking is we will see page authority score increase. And we measure all of these metrics against a control group of pages on the client's site that are not part of the link building campaign. So we get hopefully a little more of an apples to apples comparison, and we can correlate improvements to these metrics with the work that we're doing on the link building side. So page authority is definitely one, and often what we see as an early indicator. Here are a couple of more. Share of voice, which is kind of the weighted click-through rate model. I like share of voice. It's going to be very similar directionally, though, to SEMrush's estimated traffic. So you can use that right out of the box instead of doing a calculation on top of the data. They probably have a lot more client feedback than just one person saying, I like share of voice, and so they've done estimated traffic. And so we talk about estimated traffic sometimes as well. But this is where the comparison with the control group really helps the work shine, because something like estimated traffic or share of voice is probably going to start pretty small, and we're using a pretty large keyword data set here. Usually it's either 500 or 1,000 keywords for each page to measure this. And so a lot of times, especially because this is a page we're working on, the share of voice or estimated traffic is going to start low. But if we see something like a 9% month over month, with okay, 9% is decent, I'll take that home for sure. But if we compare that against a control group, and then we look at the differential percentage between the two, now we can talk about a 169% outperformance over our control group. And generally, our clients like to see the 169% difference, a little maybe more than the 10% difference. Same thing here with average position. Actually, we were down. We lost 3% of our average position, but we substantially outperformed the control group, which lost almost 13%. So that's a 74%, almost 75% outperformance. And so it's important to call it out that way. It really makes a difference when we're talking about metrics that we're maybe not seeing a huge amount of movement month over month, but a small movement can really make a difference. Another thing is, in this case, I'll go back one slide actually. In this case where we dropped, it's interesting to see that sometimes that's a positive indicator, because even though the average rank dropped, the number of keywords ranking on a particular page is increasing. And by nature of the fact that a newly ranking page is going to, or excuse me, a newly ranking keyword is going to show up on page 7, not in position 7 on page 1, the effect of the increase in the number of ranking keywords is going to actually pull the average position down. This isn't true only for link building, but it certainly is true for link building. And we see this in the early stages of nearly every campaign that we launch, as we see that decrease in average rank explicitly because the number of keywords ranking to that page has increased. And this is where we can really see that. Here are the pages, and this has sort of been anonymized, but based on local pages, we're seeing we had an increase of 29% compared to an increase on the control pages of 3%. That was an 802% outperformance in terms of the number of new keywords ranking to a particular page. So unpacking some of these metrics can be very, very powerful. And this is after the campaign had ended for a couple of months. We often see, we talked about this before in the up front with the ROI model of looking at what the return on investment might be, knowing SEO is the long game compared to SEM, and that we're going to retain that benefit as long as another competitor doesn't come steal it from us or Google doesn't change all the rules, which of course they do fairly often. But looking at it from this perspective too, beyond the term of the campaign, we're still seeing that outperformance happen month over month over month. So that's an important factor to call out as well. Okay, so that was impact reporting, and we get a lot of value out of that. It doesn't have to be that impact reporting, of course. It could be another tool out of the box, etc. But very powerful to start unpacking things and looking at why the numbers are saying what they are. So site reviews.
We use all SEMrush data for the impact reporting as well. So that's thank you, SEMrush.
Thank you, SEMrush. That's right. Okay, we have some good examples here, Garrett, to dive into. I went through and
I was supposed to erase these.
Yes, you're going to get busy erasing for a minute there, and we're going to stay on the screen share for a second here while Garrett does that, and we'll talk about a couple things. So just diving into SEMrush is a good way for us to look at these. Thank you to everyone who submitted their site for review. If you want to stick on, we're happy to do a couple of more, but we also have some questions we want to get to. So Garrett, we got to keep short 2 minutes on each of these, so it's going to be quick. I know. It's you. You're the one that took longer on your slide there, Bucko.
I know.
Okay. All right. Me. So Fox Pest Baton Rouge, thank you for submitting your site for our consideration for review. We're just going to kind of jump in right here and pulling this up in organic research so we can look at the pages that SEMrush is showing have organic traffic to them. I'm going to call out two things. One, you have these great separate landing pages based on the pest type, which I thought that looked awesome. But then Garrett actually called out that you have these specific service areas as well, these service area pages. So Garrett, I think we were talked about riffing on these service area pages. Yes. So we've got Fox Pest, Baton Rouge, service area of Denham Springs.
The ants, it just didn't jump out of me, and just because it doesn't jump out of me, it's really more about my ants. Familiarity. Yeah, I love ants. I do as creatures are really cool. But you could go more of the academic route with that for sure. But where I was thinking, what I was imagining with the locations is really thinking through their service in terms of what kinds of services or what kinds of events are commonly paired with pest control. And so, if you're buying a new house, that's one of the key things that you have to do is get the house inspected and then potentially treated. So this is, I'm like, is our research areas even right now? But I would guess that if we open up pest control, or suggest scraper, we're going to see things that relate to buying a home, and buying a home relates to realtors. So I'd be exploring realtors in the area, maybe 10 things to do to your home before you sell it, and then one of them is just go ahead and get the dang thing treated or inspected for termites or whatever pest beforehand, so that you have an easier sales cycle. Not that anybody is having trouble selling their home these days, as I understand. So that could be a potential place, but the publisher type there would be realtors that are specific to the location. So I remember he'd already said they'd done sponsorships. I thought that was fantastic. I'd also be curious if there are sort of pairings of contractor type. I don't know, if I just built the deck, is that a time to have someone come out and treat it potentially? So maybe some deck builders or home builders also would make sense for the pest control kind of bringing the two topics together. And again, you'd just be looking for vendors in your area. And what you could do is just do some queries, location plus in URL blog, and just see who the heck's coming back. Because at a certain point, especially in local, you really are going to be limited in terms of who could be a potential publishing partner. So
One recurring thing I'm seeing in Keyword Magic Tool, Garrett, is DIY. A lot of
oh,
DIY related requests. So this might be a good opportunity
interesting.
to talk about why that's potentially risky to do
Right.
for DIY pest control. That could potentially be, especially because there are so many searches around that topic. Also relating to landlords, whether it's their responsibility or the tenant's responsibility.
Oh,
That's another angle here that I'm seeing. This is just me scrolling through the Keyword Magic Tool, and I went and I switched over to questions, which is one of my favorite places to look at, just to see what people are asking. Other tools like Answer the Public, et cetera, are out there available too. But if you've got an SEMrush account, it's all right in here. It shows you what SERP features show up on the page, et cetera, et cetera. So this is good stuff.
oh, that's nice. Yeah, those two are great topics. The DIY would be a neat fit for the individual pest pages. Like, so the ants page, you could give ratings to the pests on their DIY ability or DIY-ableness of this particular pest. For sure, there should be species variations as well. I'm guessing some ants or termites would be more difficult to get rid of than others. So nice. That's fantastic, and it's through having multiple sources that you're really able to kind of come up with the leap into what would make a great addition to the page or a great angle to approach for building links. I wonder also about, again, not necessarily, this wouldn't give you the local angle, but things you should do before or after you've had particular kinds of pest treatments. Maybe if you have pets, dogs or kids that are going to be out in the backyard. So again, another kind of angle for that would bring us into very particular publisher types, pets related, kids related. We've talked about moving related stuff, certainly building related. Still the local is always a really tough one. And so where I would lean on that is just look and see who's actually publishing in your area. It'd be great if you could get a news story, but I don't know what that would or could look like. Maybe if you've donated to the right organization or group, that might be newsworthy potentially.
But
maybe if you're
backlink
saving
analytics
bees
from
in
that
your
perspective.
area.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But yeah, backlink analytics from that perspective to see who's publishing content linking to your competitors would be a good angle from that perspective.
Sure, and just get a sense of what topics are, what are the context of the link, what are the topics about, so that we could recreate some of this on our own.
So thank you, FoxPest. That was great.
FoxPest.
Okay, this next one I'm pretty excited about because it's from a company who has a condition that I have, aphantasia. So we're going to talk about imagination spectrum, and this is also something that I saw a number of recurring sort of challenges of launching a new service or site, ideating on topics that really there's not much content around. So I don't know how much we'll be able to find in terms of looking at competitive backlinks, because there may not be a competitor site that's talking about this directly. That certainly would be a way to go, or just ideating on how can we start, based on Garrett's analysis earlier of walking through this linking context development. Garrett, how could we approach this relatively new topic or concept that maybe there isn't a lot to go on out on the web already?
Yeah, this was really neat. So the aphantasia, is that how you say it?
Aphantasia is the condition where someone doesn't think or dream in pictures, but then they're also launching imagination spectrum.
So the imagination spectrum concept, I think, branches out from this actual condition that James happened to suffer from. Sorry.
Yeah. But I've been on the site, aphantasia.com.
Yeah, you'd actually seen it beforehand. It's really neat. But I thought I turned my phone off. The imagination spectrum is a really interesting concept. And so when you're starting with concepts, you're not necessarily going to already have linkers readily available. So you've got to start thinking about, I think this was a perfect fit for a larger data study. So the imagination spectrum is going to help us measure people's abilities to imagine or visualize things. And so if we're able then to have some ratings for individuals, let's say we have 1,000 people get their imagination abilities measured. And then we look at, well, what kinds of jobs do they have? What kinds of successes have they seen? What kinds of failures have they had in their lives? Is there anything, can we see any commonalities across these 1,000 people in relation to their position in the imagination spectrum? Is there some kind of, are there any patterns we're seeing? Well, for example, maybe, higher on the imagination spectrum, there's more, they're more artistic, we would potentially guess. Though I would add, the imagination, the ability to visualize something doesn't impact creativity, because James is enormously creative. It's not creative ability. It's just, can you picture something in your mind, and what potential impacts does this have? But we don't know where this even takes us yet. And so this was an exciting one. And I really think it would be a great kind of digital PR play to really, kind of define what this is, help people really grasp and understand it by doing a large scale study of this, of the condition itself. The concept. And then what are we seeing? What are some of the baseline things we're seeing? And that might give us, maybe your ability to imagine declines over time. So this becomes, kind of an interesting angle or story.
Or increases over time as you learn to kind of compensate by just human experience and being able to recognize things that you can't necessarily visualize, but at least you can understand the concept of based on experience.
And then how could, like, imagination, folks who have a easy time visualizing, how could they be more accommodating or respectful of people who aren't? And so that's another place that you could potentially look at, kind of guiding folks. Because when we talk about learning, if you're a teacher and you don't know that someone can't visualize things, how does that? It's not even something that I think we commonly think about as a condition. And so there could, you might think someone has trouble learning, but really they just have trouble visualizing. So that there could be some useful learning, teaching lessons from it as well. It was really interesting. There wasn't a lot out of the box though for this one specifically, but I would say, teaching related topics would certainly end up applying. And then whatever we end up uncovering through larger, more widespread study, we could get a better sense of where to go next.
If some sort of study like that is launched, I'm happy to participate. So
okay, next James, one for sure.
So thank you for the folks at Imagination Spectrum. Very cool. It's fun to review that. And then the next one is Sath Inc. And before we talk about this one, Garrett, I just want to call out, I love that they're keeping it human. Their copyright at the footer. It's these little touches which always tickle me. Made with love by Sath in Schaumburg and Kolkata. So just a really cool, just at the very bottom of their site. I thought that was nice for you guys to just to make it human, which is awesome. It's all human to human, business to business, or consumer to consumer, or business to consumer. It's all human to human. So that tickled me.
This helped me, James. This is one where we would definitely have a group workbench session where, just because we've been on a sales call, they've told us what they do, we still have to come back and say, okay, now what is it? What's really going on here? Who are the target customers? What are the kinds of areas and circumstances that we need to kind of crack into our publishers and topics here?
Yeah. Well, let's see if we get anything. I don't know if we'll get anything. We're missing a little bit of data here. It looks like it's a pretty new site. First data getting picked up in March. So awesome, you guys are off the ground. I don't know what NetIQ pricing is, but let's just see if we can get anything from the keyword the overview tool, and maybe switch over to the keyword magic tool to see if we get anything. We do have some data here, so that's good. I'm not sure I don't know if NetIQ, and if you guys are on and you want to comment, that would be awesome. But if we just looking here, I'm not sure if NetIQ is something that's branded for you guys, or if that's something that is an industry term. And like Garrett said, this is where the brainstorming would come with the client, and we would sit down and we would talk through these sorts of things.
This is a page copy, probably also, because a lot of the more B2B type publishers or websites or vendors, there aren't a lot of links, and those that are linking are still in the jargon or the industries about that within which this industry works. So we might not have as much here. And certainly, Suggest Scraper or Keyword Magic might not have a lot either because it's not a widely known, understood topic. So you're really still trying to position what is going on. One of the terms I saw was identity management. And that's, so which I would presume
that
is
seems pretty connected
security.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found a separate page. NetIQ Identity and Access Management Platform provides comprehensive workforce, and customer identity solutions to enterprise scale organizations. So we get some sort of idea of where we're playing here a little bit.
So we know we're selling into enterprise. This is really, on our, we really would want to get onto the pages. We'd be talking, with someone from the organization and just dig into the purchase decisioning factors here. Why would someone buy this? Who is it?
Yeah, and to clarify, that was a third party. It looks like they've got, SATH has their version of that, potentially with ID Hub as their branded version of that. I don't see NetIQ on this page, so that could be an opportunity there to try to relate a little bit to keywords that people are already searching for.
I'd be thinking also here about day one setup, rolling it out. What's the process need to look like for rolling this out to customers, or rolling it out to employees? Where are the pitfalls? How do we avoid them? And this is where some of the benefit maximization would come into play as well, where you've had either your own internal rollout experts or external rollout experts who've helped other companies onboard your services or onboard their employees into using your approach. You really want to be covering all of this ground very effectively, in my opinion, on your sales pages. And then kind of the places I would go for maybe identity management, if it's enterprise, are we talking about like warehouses, probably warehouses? Are we talking about like UPS would be using these, or Amazon possibly using these? So there might be some warehouse setup and security related topics we could start thinking about, or trying to burrow into a bit to look for ideally measurable benefits of their particular offerings. What kinds of are we reducing theft? Are we reducing unauthorized incursions? Is that, I don't know. What percentages are we impacting the concerns that the buyers would be having about their facilities or about their operations? So,
or is it data warehouse
dry here?
Are we talking about systems or warehouses in terms of electronic systems as well, sort of thing? So this is where I would say, Garrett, you know what? Let's get a call scheduled with the client, and we'll talk through some of these things, and figure out where we are on these.
We know where to start, though.
But we know where to start, and we know we have a process here. We've got this workbench, so we've got a workflow here to work through. So now it's just kind of plugging in some of these pieces to get to the point where we have these ideas and publisher types that we can then approach.
And I'd be wanting to know too, like signs or indicators that an organization is ready for this kind of a solution, or needs it, or has been needing it for a while. What are the kinds of pains they'd be feeling as this solution became more and more important, or a potential? How did it become a solution? So these are all the kinds of areas we would begin trying to ask questions and really understand the solution itself, and then where does it live kind of topically, and then how do we make sure we have the right content or the right kinds of explanations or discussions on the sales page itself.
Yes. So thank you everyone for submitting your websites for consideration. It's really awesome to be able to go at it like that and look at these. So thank you to SATH, Imagination, Spectrum, and Fox Pest Baton Rouge for participating in that. So we have a ton of questions. We're not going to go an extra hour. We're already 13 minutes over. Thank you to everyone who has held on from this perspective, but I know people will be watching this on YouTube as well, and I'd love to get some of these questions answered. Garrett, can I fire some of these at you?
Let's do this, James.
Okay,
come on with me too. I don't want to be the only one answering.
Yeah, of course. All right, of course. So Mendo Digital, thanks for this question. What about searcher intent? Do we try to get backlinks to our informational blog posts versus transactional pages?
We
So do we,
do.
yeah,
Oh, do we want links to our informational blog
to our
posts?
blog posts, yes, educational pages on the site as opposed to purely sales pages.
Uh,
And hopefully they'll become one and the same. We provide a lot of content and
get more
information
informational,
on
yeah, on
that
our
landing
sales
page. We think
pages.
about it more of as a landing page, not a sales page. But that's a good question. And sometimes we have clients who come to us, and sometimes we do occasionally have engagements where we have a mix. If maybe it's
Yes.
10% or 15% are to non-transactional pages, as you described them here. Not the sales page, but more informational pages. So we get a good diversity of mix to the destination of our links.
If I have an informational page that I'm going to spend money to build links to, I want to make sure that I'm making money from the visibility that that page is going to have. So I'd be looking at things like conversion rate on the pages. I'd be making sure that I've got a really, if it really makes sense for me to be ranking these informational pages, then they had better have a lot of kind of conversion points along the way. So people sign up for your newsletter, or they sign up for a discount or something along those lines, and that there's a clear line of value drawn between your informational and your eventual transactions. If there isn't, and you're building links to your informational page to build traffic, but you don't really have you don't know your conversion rate, or you just want to build traffic because everybody's told you to build traffic, I would stay focused on transactional. I mean, you're going to have a better return on investment that way. It is a lot harder, but it also has a higher return on your time investment, frankly.
One potential compromise might be to add some of that informational content to your
Yep.
landing page with a link to that informational content. So if someone is earlier on in their customer journey and they land on the sales page, we can still get them to that informational page where if they're more in the research stage of the purchasing journey. And so then we could get best of both worlds. We get the backlink to the page that is more likely to convert. And so we have a better potential for return on investment on that scenario. But we're also passing some of that equity earned through the backlink to that educational page as well. But it certainly can be a mix.
Thank you for that question.
That was great. Anastasios asks, in the case of an e-commerce website, do we apply this approach? So this came through when you were doing the context development, Garrett. Do we apply this approach? Like if we are selling 50 sofas, do we base the link building strategy in a category?
James, you can take this one, buddy. No, just kidding. This is where it really gets, you really do have to challenge the brainy link builder guy in the basement and say, are you serious? Because we have 50 different sofas. What are we going to do here? And this is where I really would start at the category level. I would be thinking, I would want to make sure we've got our concepts are dialed in with our brand. So let's say we're going to go the ergonomics route. And so we're going to do a big, ergonomics play. What's the ratio of your, if you measure from the bottom of your spine to the top of your neck, how much of a back do you need on the sofa, this kind of thing. We do a big study, and maybe it lives on the blog, but then large chunks of the information come over onto the actual category page. But then we go down to the 50 sofas that we have for sale. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, well, what's the difference between all these sofas? When and what are the purchase? What are the needs that they're solving that are different one from another? And that's one place to start. The other one is which ones have the highest margins, which ones have the most search demand. So we could also talk through who do we care about the most
right.
from a revenue perspective. But you do want to think about an overarching, it was perhaps disingenuous to say we would do all that work for a very a love seat that's the mid-century modern purple love seat with red polka dots.
But what if we did this? But what if we did this, Garrett? What if we said, okay, we've got 50 sofa pages, we know that, or 50 whatever e-commerce product Anastasios is selling here. But thank you for using our analogy of the sofas. What if we created a matrix where we did this research, we figured out what data points we could talk about, and Garrett, you had a number of them up on the board that we could use, and then we created a matrix or maybe even a destination page, and just like I was talking about with the last question, essentially we create an informational hub on all of this data, everything sofa related, every question you would possibly want to know about sofas, and then we selectively kind of round robin that onto individual sofa pages. So we create the work, we develop the content, etc., but then we place that content on the different sofa pages, making sure that it's unique, and it has value and it's relevant to that particular model of the sofa. Might be a way for us to have a larger research
publishers.
project.
You're right. You still have to find just the
You
right
do have to
publisher
find,
for your
right,
mid-century modern, like 3-foot back, you know, whatever the different variables are. So you
right,
really, at that point, have to be asked. You definitely want to do that. So if you want it to be a top-down kind of, you know, either data story or whatever kind of play that you're doing. And then you have to ask which ones are the most valuable, or which ones do we really want to move the most of? We got too much inventory, so we want to increase our rankings, and then ask, you know, kind of ask the secondary questions. Well, this style fits very nicely in the Southwest style of decor, so we're really going to blow out Southwest decor. Or this style is actually really great for people who are very, very tall. So we're going to do some research around where do tall people go? What are some of the other kinds of problems or publishers where tall people are going these days? So there might be some of those kinds of angles we could approach it from as well. But certainly, you know, straight up 50 sofa pages is a big problem to solve. And I think you absolutely would want to be asking you know, at the category level first, kind of solving these problems, or asking these questions, establishing, like James said, a matrix for, you know, this sofa is the best fit for if you're 6'2" or higher. So that kind of a play, I think, would make the most sense.
Yeah, we did get a number of general SEO questions that were backlink adjacent kind of thing. Craig asked how to determine what links are causing an algo penalty on your page / site. What are you looking for? I think that SEMrush's what is it, the toxicity score is a great one. So you just load your site into the backlink audit tool, and it will generate that score for you and tell you which. And they've got their own algorithm around what is a toxic link, essentially. And if you get enough of that toxicity flowing to a particular page, you may want to do something about it. They've got the disavow tool built into SEMrush, et cetera. So I would say SEMrush would be a great resource for that, Craig, and you can use some of those built-in tools to determine, to get more information about whether or not you've got a penalty-related issue to deal with there based on that toxicity score.
Thank you, James. Guys, just so you know, there's like OG SEOs, people who have been around for a long time. James is a BG SEO. No, not the song, not the group. He was before Google. He was in SEO before Google.
Alta Vista, baby, that was good stuff. Those were the days.
So guys, James knows his stuff. And again, I'm just a link builder. So if you got SEO questions, go to James. They're going over to him.
This is a good one to bring it home with. Thank you for if you've stuck around this long. Thank you so much for your time. We're almost half an hour beyond, so thank you so much. And one final thing here, Roy Cohen asked, he mentioned this. I thought this would be a good way to wrap up here. Tell me how you're getting links to money pages without paying for them. I'm interested. I think we've talked about demonstrating that, but Garrett, do you want to fill any more gaps there in terms of how do we get links to our money pages without paying $50 or $100? I don't even know what the going rate is, but that's it.
That's like what this whole webinar was about, man.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
And in fairness to Roy, he asked this very early on in the webinar.
Yes, and perfectly, we welcome all questions. It absolutely has to do with unpacking the context surrounding your offering. What do you have for sale? Who uses it? Why do they use it? What kinds of what kinds of life stages are they in what events have just happened in their lives? You really have to, work on your imagination spectrum there, because you really are going to be working a lot you've got to think through a lot of this stuff that as SEOs, we don't normally think about. We're just thinking about what does search intent look like? What kinds of queries? this defines what information needs to be on the page. But what we're really challenging you to do is to really think a lot more around the context of what you have for sale, what the individual item is. And so, I would just invite you to pretend like what you have, your money page is selling a sofa, and then think about, go back and walk through these different facets that we use to unpack what's the context, what's the topical context surrounding this particular offering. And from there, we really make our leaps into what kinds of concepts do we need to pitch. And then, listen, I'll bring us back to that engagement slide, the very last slide of before measure impact, where we're saying the number one thing is to make sure you're benefiting publishers. And if you're not using money to benefit publishers, which we don't do and we don't advise you do, then you're going to have to use information. You're going to have to use a benefit to their reason for publishing, which for a lot of that 95% of the publishing pyramid is sales. So you're working to help them sell. Look, challenge us again, ask us again on our next webinar. If we didn't quite answer the question fully, and then also throw a category at us too, or a particular sales page within that category, and it'll help us be a little more concrete as we're able on the fly.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. One final thing to take care of here are the free books. The following people have a great copy of this coming to them. Please email Kate with SEMrush. She'll give you the email address in a second here to email. Or if you want to give it to me, Kate, I can mention it. But we've got SATH, Imagination Spectrum, Fox Pest, and then we also have, and I think these are people who are not with those organizations. We also have the question askers. We've got Mendo Digital, Anastasios, thank you for that question, as well as Craig Mullins for the SEO related question, and then Roy Cohen, thanks for bringing it home for us, bringing it full circle. So those people, please message Kate. Kate, how are they going to get in touch with you? I'm totally putting her on the spot here. Oh, great. Okay, so you can email webinar@semrush.com, or alternatively, you can email webinar@semrush.com to send your mailing address so that we can drop ship these books to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation.
And these books do go a lot more into the prospecting, qualifying, and outreach phases. They've got some great sections from folks like Julie Joyce on link buying. They've got a section on from Ross Hudgens on data or kind of survey driven. Giselle Navarro has a great section on outreach for digital PR campaigns. Even Sherry Thoreau's in there on site structure and link building related issues. It's a fantastic book, but I do want to add, it doesn't have anything that we just talked about. This is what we've been developing over the last 3 to 5 years, and we really weren't ready to put it into the book yet. So link building is always changing. So definitely keep watching webinars and keep your finger on the pulse, folks. But we really want to thank you for sticking through all the way. We enjoy talking about this stuff. So appreciate you guys having you guys along.
Okay, thanks everyone for your time. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.